gave a perfect transition for Ali, because Ali travels extensively. He's been in the Middle East recently. And so, speaking of maybe our markets aren't reacting, but their other markets are.
All of the important things.
Tell us about what the reactions are overseas.
All of the important things that are driving this election, they tend to be very domestic in nature. While foreign policy probably holds a stronger position in this election cycle than it has in prior ones, in the case that in 2008, the rational decision was about who you were going to elect, who would be a better custodian of the economy. That is not the same conversation this year. And when you're not in America, the question really becomes about can the next American president maintain the peace, the fragile peace in the world, and can they not make the situation worse? We're in a very, very delicate situation in the world. We have a situation I liken to 1914 when the Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated. If you look at it in context, the Archduke Ferdinand and Sarajevo and being shot on that corner wasn't all that important as a singular event, but something was going to happen that was going to trigger a war within that small period of time, because the world was a tinderbox. And that's the world we're in right now. When the Turks shot down that Russian jet over Syria, Americans and Russians enjoy a very good military relationship. Someone was able to call someone and say, stand down, we have this. We don't enjoy that relationship with the Chinese at all. And not that we expect the Chinese to do something aggressive, but the Chinese might do something aggressive with one of our allies, and the Chinese ally, the North Koreans, seem every week like they're looking to do something aggressive. And the world is very, very concerned. So on one hand, the world likes to pick on America a little bit. It likes to have something to laugh at in America. And I've had senior people in other countries tell me, it's time you had a president that we can all laugh at. On the other hand, because we have, right, they mean it that way. That's what they mean.
Okay.
We've always had these presidents that you can laugh at. So you should have one too. But then they start to think about it for a few minutes, and they say, while a lot of people in the world enjoy the tough talk rhetoric that we've been getting from Donald Trump, there are countries that are really very worried about this. For instance, our relationship with Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries is at probably a 40-year low. We have enjoyed a 40-year relationship with them, which got us a lot of oil. It may have also got us a lot of terrorism. We have now decided that we're going to have a relationship with Iran, sort of, kind of. Iran's a lot more like Turkey. It's a heavily industrialized, highly populated country that wants influence in the region. So we are overseeing a shift in politics in China and in Asia, and we're overseeing a shift in the Middle East, and it is going to unfold very rapidly, and there is a very central role for the American president. So I think you're going to see global markets react immediately to the response. Generally speaking, the world sees Hillary Clinton as a steady hand on the tiller, although there are some countries who have specific issues with the things that she's done. There are some people who will see Donald Trump as someone who will get things done in the Vladimir Putin mold. But generally speaking, I think if you started to see early returns that show Florida and North Carolina going toward Trump and possibly Pennsylvania, and he says he's going to win in Ohio, and Ohio's up, it could happen, you're going to start to see those opening markets in Asia react probably to the downside.
I just want to make a couple of comments. Number one is there any recognition that our ability to tell Russia to stand down is probably, as you said, is at a kind of the lowest point it's been in decades,
but it exists,
and that our influence in the world under a administration that is going to be continued by Hillary Clinton has also waned tremendously.
Sure.
And has put us in matter of fact, some critics are saying has put us in a very
Yeah, there's no question. America's station in the world is weaker than it was, and that's why you see in the Trump campaign they invoke Ronald Reagan a lot. I think that's going to have to be repaired. There's no question. But the one thing to remember is when it comes to Russia, we all talk smack about each other. We've all got a lot of nukes pointed at each other, and no one's touching any of those. So we do have the ability to work with Russia to solve problems, and that's an interesting dynamic in this election.
Okay. And, and speaking of our international relations, I know that, Michael, that you think that China, this election could affect our relations with China, which Ali was just talking about, but there could be some unintended consequences, right?
Yeah, what you're alluding to is TPP. So TPP is viewed as this now toxic trade deal by both candidates. Both candidates have come out and spoken against TPP. Now, in all honesty, the economic benefit of TPP to the U.S. is somewhat minimal, especially compared to past trade deals. But where TPP is critical is geopolitically, right? So TPP is essentially a deal that we're brokering with our closest friends in the Western Pacific to try to say, listen, we still have power in Asia. We're still there. We still have influence. Do this deal with us. They've been working on this for a number of years. Now, all of a sudden, we decide we're going to pull out of this deal, and all of our allies that are in Asia are going to have to stop and start looking at China in a different light. So this is going to open up opportunities for China with our allies in Asia and really solidify their influence within that region. So, I mean, that's an indicator of what's to come if we don't pass TPP. Additionally, both candidates' rhetoric have been sort of anti-globalization. And, if you extend this out, China right now has the One Belt, One Road. They've just launched the Asia Investment Infrastructure Bank. They are doing things to increase their influence, not just in Asia, but globally. So, be it Clinton or be it Trump, if they follow through with what they're saying in terms of trade, we will end up empowering China and reducing our influence in Asia and across the world, and hurting our reputation.
So either candidate could result, depending on whether there's a public position and a private position with Mrs. Clinton.
Yes.
That's right. So that remains.
And I think it's fair to say she does have one. While everybody thought that was kind of nasty of Donald Trump to say, I don't think her heart's against TPP.
That came from WikiLeaks.
And Bernie Sanders pushed her into that corner. The one problem we've all got is no one is able to explain to high school educated Americans who work in manufacturing why we love these trade deals so much that increase GDP growth, they increase corporate profitability. But if you are going to lose that job, you're going to lose that job, and we don't have a way to square that circle.
Yeah, you might have a trade deal that makes 15 people better off, but 10 people worse off. And, you're disillusioned if you think that you're going to be able to take those 10 people and retrain them into this new, which politicians would like to say. But in actuality, it's not realistic. And what Trump has done is coalesce support of those 10 of the 15 people who have been hurt by some of these past trade deals, and that's where he's getting his support. And many of those, I think Jason alluded to it earlier, I think the race is closer than the polls may suggest, because a lot of these people that were impacted by these deals are in swing states.
So, and I'll just make one comment about that. The fact is that, there's some sort of there's a phrase that describes it, is that we won't know really how people are going to vote until they go into the voting booth. So I think there is a possibility, as a longstanding contrarian, is when all of us raise our hands and say that Hillary Clinton is going to win, I immediately think, this could be, there could be a surprise. So, we don't know yet really what people are going to actually do when they go in and pull that lever.
Data point real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
Searches for NAFTA and free trade among the biggest.
TPP, right?
Yeah, and TPP among the biggest on Investopedia. People want to know what these are all about. Maybe they hadn't been paying attention over the past few years, and these terms are being brought up as realistic.
Trade deals, we don't even pay attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But as you know, trade makes the world go round, so people are suddenly very interested in that.
And Caleb, one of the things that was in the description of what we would be talking about tonight, one of them was anxiety. And so is there an anxiety index in Investopedia? So will you tell us what your anxiety index is showing us now?
Right now it's taking a little nap. The anxiety index the anxiety index measures a host of different metrics that could impact volatility. So it's not too different from the VIX, but it does measure some other things like searches for terms that may be a little bit more fear-based or more confidence-based, along with other market metrics. And it correlates pretty closely with the VIX, although because we have that search data, sometimes the anxiety or that uncertainty level, the volatility level, spikes a little bit before the VIX. And we put out a study on that recently that I can share with all of you. And it is at its lowest point in several months. It was really high around Brexit, but it has quieted down and remains steadily quiet and gotten even quieter over the last couple of weeks.
You know, I see Jason listening intently because at Strategas they have a lot of proprietary indexes and information and surveys of institutional investors and whatnot. And because how many people are, you know, on Investopedia at any given time? I mean, it's a huge universe, right?
It's 23 million unique visitors a month. They're not all there every day at the same time, but I would love them to come. They're ready for you. But that's a lot of people and a lot of searches in the United States and also around the world. I mean, we have a pretty big traffic base in Europe and in India, and we're feeling those searchers are coming from all over the place.
Right. And Ali, let me ask you about populism. And I don't know, did Jason and Nick talk about the worldwide populist movements that are occurring? I mean, I just read about the Pirate Party in Iceland that just, you know, happened kind of on the internet, and they're as surprised as anyone that they've actually gotten some some traction. So the rise of populism is not just in the U.S. It's worldwide. So to talk about that phenomenon.
It's an opportunity gap and wealth inequality. It was the same thing that started the Arab Spring. It's the same thing that starts the skinhead movements in Europe. Which is why when you hear these presidential candidates blame each other or their immediate predecessor or George Bush or Barack Obama, it belies a lack of sophistication. This is a global issue. People around the world have decided that they are angry with the center and with the status quo. And the irony in this election is that if Hillary Clinton were to win, it would be such a blow to the status quo to have a woman elected as the first president of the United States and of the biggest and most important democracy, and yet it will be a big hug for the status quo. And that is the frustration that drives so many of these Trump supporters and drove Brexit, which wasn't a referendum on the question that was asked. The reason Brexit happened is because it was a referendum. There wasn't the available question because there wasn't an election, so people just sort of did the throw the bums out version of that they could on Brexit. And you're seeing that around the world. And now you're getting to the second generation of it because the first round of throwing the bums out didn't result in what people needed. It didn't close the opportunity and income gap. So as a world, and the World Bank and the IMF really underscore this in terms of how serious an issue this is. We have spent decades trying to figure out ways to get people to share the pie better, and we are absolutely going in the other direction. We are lifting the poorest among us in the world up. We've done a pretty good job of that, but we're not doing it for the middle, and the middle is getting restless.